We've been taught everything except how to be human. Welcome to Human School, where remarkable people turn raw, unfiltered experience into practical wisdom. I'm Miles Edcox, and this podcast was born from the belief that you don't graduate from being human. You just get more honest about the lessons. If you're ready to stop performing your life and start participating in it, you're in the right place. This is Human School, where we finally learn what matters most. Today's guest has spent much of his life paying attention to details, to people, to what makes someone feel known. That kind of attention has become his art form. Whether it's a handwritten note, a conversation remembered, or a moment of surprise in the middle of an ordinary day, Guidara has built his life around creating meaning through care. What's beautiful about him is that his work isn't really about food or fine dining. It's about reminding people that excellence and empathy can live in the same room, that hospitality at its best is love in motion. That belief is something we hold close here at Human School as well. At Onsite, we call this healing hospitality, the idea that how we welcome people matters as much as what we can give them. Will lives this idea everywhere he goes. He's a North Star for all of us hospitality junkies. And I'm grateful to sit down with someone who's mastered the simple art of noticing, listening, and giving just a little more than expected. Please welcome my friend and one of the most thoughtful humans I know, Will Guidara.
Golly. Hey, thank you for that. It was beautiful. And I think two things really kind of hit me. One, that empathy and excellence can live together in the same room. I love that articulation. And it almost feels like a different way to express this idea that you can be competitive and a good person, right? Like to want to just be the best version of yourself and recognize that in doing that, you don't need to care less about the people around you. Like you can lift people up on your way to the top and not feel the need to try to tear them down. The other thing it just made me, think about is I feel like we look at other people, and once they've done a certain amount, we convince ourselves that they no longer need praise and affirmation. And I think we all crave it. We all need it. We all want more of it. And I feel so affirmed and lifted up by those words. And I always tell people to, if someone asks them a question and it's a good question, to just say, good question. Because even the smallest little micro doses of praise can really do something pretty powerful for another person. And anyway, my pitcher is filled by those words, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Well, we joked when we first got in here about how we're even in more proximity than we used to be geographically.
Yeah.
And we longed to spend more time together as buddies when we were New York to Tennessee, and now you're spending a little more time in Tennessee. And it took, kind of us having this conversation to get together, but why not take advantage of it? It's like I thought about that before you got here. It's been a long time since I've got to sit across from you and say, hey, here's what I feel. This is how I feel about you. And I know you hear a lot of this stuff from the world, but I think sometimes it matters. I think praise gets a bad rap too sometimes, and I don't think it's something that we need, but I think everybody deserves it. And I think praise is just a form of feedback.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, are you hearing kind of how you show up for people? And if not, I want to remind you.
It's so funny, man. Like now we're talking about praise and competitiveness. I'd add criticism to the list. Like I literally have a section, the title of a chapter in the next thing I'm writing is on criticism, and the subtitle is criticism is not a bad word. Like I feel like we've added all these negative stigmas to all these words in a very blanket way that is actually undoing their relentlessly positive impact. Like I think praise is a beautiful thing, and you're right, it is like people that need to be told they're doing a good job or feel the need to be told they're doing a good job are dubbed as, I don't know, needy, self-indulgent, codependent. And it's like, no, hey, it feels great. Like it feels great to get a massage. Does that mean that someone who likes getting a massage is like needy and codependent? No, it feels good. And by the way, not to mention the fact that, like, if someone does do something awesome, yeah, praise them because it's the right thing to do. But also, the more you receive, the more you want. It's a great way to reinforce the kind of behavior you want to see in the world around you, right? There's a strategy to doing it, if not just because you want to be the kind of person that invests in someone else's happiness. And I don't know, I just think there's too many words that are given negative connotations, and in doing so, I think we're losing some of the good stuff that's out there.
Totally. Yeah, and you and I think you're a critical thinker and a compassionate person, and I love the way that I remember we always get into this. We get into gymnastics around the words and frames and thoughts and people and culture. And I do think when my work in psychology has taught me that when people are under compound stress or their nervous systems are activated, and most people with a heartbeat, if you're consuming a lot of the news for today, and if you see division in every direction and see people at extremes with their beliefs and what they disagree with, there's no way we don't consume some of that. It's just human nature to the vicarious and secondary nature of stress. We're going to consume a little bit of it. And when we are under some sense of stress, then our ability to zoom out like we're doing with certain concepts and be like, yeah, but there's also a good side of this.
Yeah.
It gets a little more narrow. And we get a little bit more, as a human species, we get a little bit more protective of our resources to try to, in a sense, when there's fear out there, it induces fear in here. So we get a little bit survival forward. And so we get protective of our resources and we consolidate and things get a little more narrow. And it's harder to see the vantage point of humans. So I've been watching that, and people ask all the time, how do you feel about what's happening in culture right now? And I feel weirdly sad and heavy at times, but I feel pretty optimistic because I've seen so many people, having had a front row seat now for thousands of people that have gone through difficult life circumstances. And in some cases, I've seen people at their worst. Like, how could they navigate this anymore, regardless of what was happening in their life? And I kind of know what's on the other side of that.
Yeah.
There's this grand coming together. Yeah. If we make the right decisions and we get the right leadership, whatever that looks like, if we get the right guidance. And I think some cases we put too much pressure on, if we don't have the right leader, we'll never get out of this. I think that's when self-leadership starts to get deployed. And I think at a certain point, there's a tipping point. And I don't know how close we are, but I've seen too much evidence on the other side of polarization and discontent and divide and frustration to know that there is beauty coming. And so I'm kind of weirdly excited about it.
Well, no, but it's true. I mean, if you simple pattern recognition would say clearly that you are correct. And I think it's just a matter of how and when does it happen. The thing that troubles me most about what we're going through, and I'm being very politically agnostic with this statement, is that it's becoming more and more normalized to turn away from one another and less to turn towards one another. Simple things like curiosity are going by the wayside. And by the way, everything that I believe to be true about hospitality, it's rooted in, those two things. To turn towards other people with curiosity. To be present enough to get to know them, to care enough to listen, and then to do something with what you heard. And I watch people who disagree engaging in conversations right now, and the listening part isn't happening nearly as much as it needs to. When you can watch people having a conversation and you can tell the other person is not listening. They're just waiting for the person to stop talking so that they can say what they wanted to say. And that's happening too much right now. And now, thankfully, I've learned just as much from the people I want to emulate as I have from the people that I decidedly do not want to emulate. And so I do believe there are enough people realizing, like, this isn't who we're meant to be. Again, I'm not talking politics right now. I'm just talking about like this general thing we've settled into. And maybe we need enough bad examples to right the ship a little bit.
Possibly. How do you feel like, I'm curious about this, how do you feel like hospitality does or does it play a role in healing humanity or the divide that we see right now?
I mean, I think, okay, hospitality, I like to redefine that word every year or so, even more frequently. I think that's just an important exercise to do with any word or idea you care about, because, well, the better you are at articulating an idea, the better you become at compelling those around you to embrace it. Some of my favorite definitions of hospitality, it's making other people feel seen. It's giving them a sense of belonging. The one I'm really into right now is it's being creative and intentional in pursuit of relationships. And when you look at the word through any of those definitions, and then you think about how to bridge the gap between people that disagree, how to cure division, how to unite people with varying perspectives, how to turn towards and embrace strangers, how to do any of these things. I just think hospitality is literally everything. I think it is the entire solution. And obviously when I'm using the word right now, I'm not being reductive. I'm like, hospitality is serving people in a restaurant or a hotel. I'm talking about it as a much bigger idea that I think transcends an industry. But I define it as like, yeah, slowing down, being fully with the person that you're with.
I feel that adding so it's interesting. I get this little subsect of the world week in and week out, and I'm not as involved in day-to-day as I once was, but every time I get a chance to get out there, I love being out there, which is our primary campus just 30 minutes west of here outside Nashville, talking about on-site. People come in. We'll have a new group of people every week, and anywhere from 50, 60, 80 people, all across the world, different belief systems, different political identity. However, it's hard to even find certain patterns.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times if you have a product and a service, you get people who are aligned around the product and service, so their belief systems are somewhat aligned, and you get a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's a pretty broad swath.
Yeah.
And I get to see week in and week out that if you show up with warmth and kindness and curiosity, I think some of the staples that you're describing that make up a broader sense of hospitality, that you can watch people absolutely come together, have civil discourse, put things aside, and be human with one another, see the human in each other. So that example exists in the pockets of the world that I evolve in, and that's maybe why I'm a little more optimistic about what we could do and how it could be deployed out in humanity. And I don't get much time with you, and so I really want to spend some of this time hearing about what you're up to now, kind of that stage 2 act.
Yeah.
But I know I would devalue all of you that are getting introduced to you that may not know you, to not hear a little bit of the story that got you here, kind of where this spark comes from. Why did you become the hospitality guy that took it from a restaurant to now a much broader sense of use, and you see it as a tool that could change the world?
So I grew up in restaurants. My dad was a restaurateur. And my dad, gosh, he was my hero growing up. My best friend, my greatest mentor, my dad. It honestly didn't matter what he did for a living. That's likely the thing that I would have wanted to do. And he was my hero for a bunch of different reasons. I quote him so much in my book. People have asked me, when's your dad going to write a book? And I would say, I think I took all of his good stuff already. He is my hero because of the way, the integrity with which he lives, the way in which he loves on people, so many different things. But it was made especially clear because when I was a kid, my mom was diagnosed with brain cancer and ultimately became a quadriplegic. And that was when I was young. I think she was diagnosed with brain cancer when I was 4. I was a quadriplegic by the time I was like 8 or 9. And watching him work restaurant hours, which anyone listening to this that doesn't know what that means, it just means a lot of hours. Care for her. And that means every single morning getting her out of bed, washing her, dressing her, getting her ready for the day, doing the entire thing in reverse at the end of the day. And being a good dad to me. I mean, and a very good present dad in spite of all that. Like, there are some people that are just Hall of Fame dads. And he was one of those guys. And so I wanted to be like him. I just happened to love what he did. And I got to experience that because I would go to work with him on Saturdays. And every time I went into one of his restaurants, I mean, I just fell in love with the dining rooms. I fell in love with this choreographed frenzy. I fell in love with the orchestrated chaos, this idea that, like, you could bear witness to all of life's experiences happening within the same room at any given time. And as a kid, I wouldn't have articulated any of that this way then, but it was just fun, and I loved it. And it was made especially true because when I was 12, my dad, in the company that he worked for, they had a restaurant called Brasserie, which was in the basement of this building. And right above that restaurant was this other restaurant called the Four Seasons. And Brasserie was, a fine casual restaurant. The Four Seasons, though, right above it, was like America's first great fine dining restaurant. One of the most significant restaurants in America. And I always worked at Brasserie and kind of knew that this place existed above. And when I was 12, I finally convinced my dad to take me for dinner there. And that night, gosh, it was special. I don't remember much about the dinner. I don't remember a single thing I ate. I remember I got one of those like navy blue Brooks Brothers blazers with the gold buttons because I wanted to look very fancy for the night. I remember it was the first time in my life I was at a restaurant, dropped my napkin on the ground, and someone replaced it with a brand new one and called me sir when they gave it to me. But most of all, I remember that for however many, 2-3 hours we were there, the world was put on pause. And all that existed was me across from my hero. This person who, as close as I felt to him, we didn't get time like that. I think it's important to understand why your work matters. Because I don't care how much you like your job, sometimes work sucks. Right. And if you don't know about the higher purpose of whatever it is you're doing, and every profession has a higher purpose if you're curious enough to identify it, it's impossible to bring your most fully realized self to the work on the difficult days. And that year, my dad made me write a list of what I wanted to accomplish in life. He was very intentional, almost to a fault. That sounds ridiculous. But I think he would just do these things as exercises with me. And I said I wanted to go to Cornell to study hospitality. I wanted to open my own restaurant in New York, and I wanted to marry Cindy Crawford. And on the third one, I did better, even still.
Yes, you did. I know her.
But a big part of why I knew to write that then was that dinner, because, gosh, like they created this magical world for me in my life that honestly needed more magic with everything our family was going through. And I was just so excited and obsessed with trying to do the same thing for other people in the years to follow. And honestly, until I wrote my book, was the only job I ever had. I only worked in restaurants. And I did go to Cornell. I graduated. I went to work for Danny Meyer, a legendary restaurateur. Was able to buy the restaurant I became known for, 11 Madison Park, from him. After I bought it, I ended up making that restaurant into the best restaurant in the world. Grew an entire restaurant.
Speaking of competitive, there's a great story that got you there. I don't know, give us a thumbnail of that. It's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, so I got to that restaurant. And I mean, when I got there at the time, it was like a middling restaurant in the city. The food was good, not great. The service was friendly, not very precise, but the dining room was legendary. And I was brought in as a part of the team that was charged with elevating the experience so that it lived up to the room. And like anyone, in the beginning, we doubled down in pursuit of excellence with the product, which meant in the kitchen, we hired better cooks, got better ingredients. In the dining room, fancier stuff, better servers, more disciplined training. And it started to really pay off. We went from 2 stars in the New York Times to 3 stars to 4 stars. That's the most stars. Went from 0 Michelin stars to 1 Michelin star, then to 3 stars. That's the most of those you can get. We're feeling ourselves, right? Like the competitive side was like...
How rare is it to have 3 Michelin stars?
It's very, very rare. I mean, I think in New York City, there's probably 3 or 4 restaurants that have 4 and 3. And then one day I got an envelope in the mail from the world's 50 best. And this is one of those moments, that I think most people have had one of these moments, right? Those where you can recall every detail vividly because it was that impactful in your story. This list was the first of its kind, the first to rank every restaurant on the planet against one another. And in doing so, it gave us a gift because now we had something more to compete for. And listen, I don't think accolades are everything. I don't think that anyone has done anything of like pure consequence in pursuit of accolades, but they're healthy motivations. And I think they're good things to, especially if you're leading a team, to get people rallied around the pursuit of. So I was fired up. And we went to London in June for the ceremony. I like to gamify everything. I actually think it's one of my superpowers as a leader. I think we don't invest enough time just trying to make work fun, just trying to make life fun. I think everything can be more fun than we allow it to be. And the more things in your life and work that you turn into a game, the better at those things you become, because it's fun to play games. The more you play, the better you get. And so we had assigned seating, and I was looking at where we were seated relative to where the people who'd come in number 1 through 5 the year before were seated. And
the award show game. I do
figuring there was a correlation, right?
Who's winning?
I think I guess number 35. Anyway, I'm sure there was some preamble from the MC that kicked it off, but all I remember was him saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, let's get started at number 50, a new entry from New York City, 11 Madison Park." I was like, gosh, darn it. I'd come in last place. Now, to the competitive thing, some people don't get that. They're like, you're one of the 50 best in the world. And yeah, but in that room, we were last. And that's just not how I'm wired. Like, I want to win. Not because the win itself defines me, but because I want to be the best at it. Like, if I'm going to do it, I don't understand not trying to be. I mean, that night, literally, we left the party early. I was kind of embarrassed, went back to the hotel, had some whiskey, and effectively tried to figure out what were we going to do. And here's the reality. It's actually absurd to say that one restaurant's the best in the world. When you earn the top spot on that list, what it really means is you're the restaurant having the greatest impact. At this point, our food was amazing. Our service was amazing. The dining room was amazing. The product was amazing. And it was for those reasons we were on that list. But when we paused for long enough to think about it, it became clear we hadn't done anything impactful. When I looked at the restaurants that had been number 1, they were all run by chefs. I'm not a chef. I'm a dining room guy. I've always wanted to be the person in the room making other people happy. And gosh, each of them was unreasonable in pursuit of the food they were serving, their product, and relentless in pursuit of innovation. What new ingredients could they use? Techniques could they develop? And each of them has influenced how restaurants everywhere approach cooking. That night, I wrote on a cocktail napkin, "We will be number 1 in the world." But doesn't matter how big a goal is if you don't have a strategy to achieve it. It's a pipe dream. So I needed to identify our impact. And I thought about them. If they were unreasonable in pursuit of product and relentless in pursuit of change, we were going to be unreasonable in pursuit of people and relentless in pursuit of the one thing that will never change, which is our human desire to feel seen, to feel cared for, to feel that sense of belonging, just to feel welcome. And so underneath "we will be number one in the world," I wrote those two words: unreasonable hospitality. And one of the quotes from my dad, he often says, "Adversity is a terrible thing to waste." Now, I look back on that last place finish with so much gratitude, because I don't believe we would have done everything we did next had it not been for that frustration we felt that first night.
Maybe that illustrates what we were talking about earlier. And now you've got us on the edge of a cliff, so we've got to get that next part of like, what happened next? But when we talked about how humanity seems to be in a struggle right now, and I think there's a grand opportunity of what can we learn from this period about one another, and where do we go from here? I just hope more people are writing where they want to go on a card and thinking about the strategy of how we get there, because I think this is something communally that we bring ourselves out of. No one person or party or anybody's going to bring ourselves out. But I think collectively we have an opportunity for the best versions of us to be tired of where we are and rise up to who we can be.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of excited about that, because it seems like that's a moment you arrived at that night in your hotel room. And you illustrated, too, that you think without that adversity of being last on the list and the frustration, that it might not have motivated you or the team as much as it did.
Yeah. But I think the other thing that's, from a different perspective, how this is all tied back to what's going on right now. I'm not talking about the discourse and the division, but more just with AI and all of the crazy change that's happening all around us, change that is happening so quickly that most of us have no idea where the world is going and what things are going to look like. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I don't even know what world I'm raising them to thrive within. But I think in moments of dramatic change, the one thing you can always do is lean into the things that you know will never change. And that's where I think hospitality once again surfaces as a beautiful virtue that we can all rally around. Anyway, that's how the journey really started. There's a quote, it's my favorite about hospitality. I'd imagine a lot of the listeners know it. It's by Maya Angelou. It goes, "People will forget what you say, they will forget what you do, but they will never forget how you made them feel." And I believe that to be so very true. I know it from the experiences I've served and the many that I've received. And yet, as true as it is, and as much as it is the case that very few people would argue with it, so many people and businesses approach what they're doing in kind of just the wrong way. They reserve all of their best efforts for the things they are saying and doing, and invest very few of them into how they are making people feel.
So true.
And so, without doing the full audiobook version of our evolution at the restaurant, really what the next several years became was being as unreasonable in pursuit of those things as we were serving the best food or delivering the most perfect service or having the fanciest plates and glasses. Not that we cared less about excellence. We just chose to care even more about hospitality. And that was brought to life in so many different ways, whether it was pouring ourselves into the guest experience, identifying every little opportunity we had to fully exceed people's expectations in the most seemingly insignificant but very significant ways. Or we hired people onto our team called Dreamweavers, and they were just there as a resource, such that if anyone in the dining room learned something specific about anyone we were serving, they had a team there to turn that into a memory. And I'll give you a couple examples just because that might sound vague for people. But one of my favorites is there's a family of 4 from Spain dining with us, parents and their children. We had these big, big windows. It started snowing. We learned the kids were seeing snow for the first time. Dreamweaver runs out into the city, finds some sleds. They leave. There's an Uber SUV parked out front. sleds in the back, a big thermos of hot chocolate in the front for the coolest nightcap of all time, going to Central Park to go sledding with your kids for the first time. We did stuff like that all the time. And I guarantee you the people that went sledding at Central Park after their dinner don't remember a single thing they ate, but they will never forget how that made them feel. What was amazing, the more of this stuff that we did over the years was, okay, obviously it was good for the people we were serving, who when they were leaving, they were no longer talking about what an amazing meal they'd had. They were talking about what a magical experience they had had. Penn and Teller, the magician duo. Teller has a quote I love. He says, "Sometimes magic is just being willing to invest more energy into an idea than anyone else would deem reasonable." Why I love that quote is because it communicates very clearly it's not hard. We were just willing to try harder. But the bigger change was for my team. I'd been working in restaurants my entire life. I'd never been a part of one where the morale was so high and the team was so consistently engaged, because as much as we were making other people feel stuff, I mean, it's the coolest thing about hospitality. It's the most selfish pleasure. It feels unbelievably good to make other people feel good, to the point that we were addicted. And that addiction, a good addiction, well, although we could probably unpack that through your lens. I'd love to actually hear your thoughts on it. It grew into this momentum that over the course of 10 years, we just kept on going with it and going with it and going with it. And then I found myself in Melbourne, Australia at the next 50 Best Award, number 9 or something. And we became the number 1 restaurant in the world. But here's the thing. It had nothing to do with the excellence of our product. Don't get me wrong. Excellence obviously matters. What I'm saying is excellence is merely table stakes. We became number 1 because we made the choice to be as unreasonable in pursuit of how we made people feel as everyone else on that list was, solely in pursuit of the product they sold. And there's so many lessons and stories I can share from that time, but that's the Cliff's Notes.
I'm curious about that night, because I go back and think about the 12-year-old that must have been, I mean, my heart breaks to think about your mom being a quadriplegic at that age. I think about her experience of not being mobile enough to care for you, play with you, do the things that we do as parents and now with our toddlers. And even when I'm sick with the flu or something, my kids are very confused. Yeah. Because they don't get it. And they're like, yeah, but we're going to wrestle. We're going to do our thing. Yeah. So I think about the tension there and the challenge that your mom must have been going through, but also from a 12-year-old perspective, to have that in the middle of your home. It's highly disruptive, to an underdeveloped brain. I would imagine it brought up all kinds of emotions at the time. Then suddenly you get exposed at 12 to the Four Seasons and this hopeful element that you'd been dreaming of. And then someone sees you there in a simple act of picking up your napkin and addressing you as sir. Is that the spark that drove you to the night where you received what you set out to do, or was there something else in that timeline where you really were seen?
I mean, gosh, I feel like origin stories are always hard for me to pinpoint it to a single experience. I feel like everything for me has been somewhat incremental. I mean, my mom, God, I learned so much from her about this stuff. She could not walk or talk, but she could smile. And a couple things happened around my mom. One, my dad was always particularly concerned about my confidence because of my mom. He didn't want me to grow up feeling lesser than others because I didn't have a mom like they did. And I went to a private school, and so everyone lived kind of all over the place, and which meant that to hang out with your friends, you needed someone to drive you. And he did not want me to always have to rely on other people's parents to come pick me up. And his concern was that I just would not be a part of the social dynamic. And so he moved houses to a house that was right next to the school. And it was this house where their bedroom was on the ground floor, and the people who lived there before us worked from home. This is like working from home way back in the day before it was a thing. And so the second floor, it was just this one big open room. And that was my bedroom. And I played the drums. We had a whole music setup up there. And that became where everyone would hang out. So in that one move, I was always kind of the host growing up, and I loved it. I loved being the person that got to invite everyone over. And it was out of necessity, but it turned out to be something that I really derived quite a bit of pleasure from. That never would have been the case absent my mom's condition. But the other thing is, because we lived so close, I would walk home from school or bike home from school. And at this point, when I was in like middle school, high school, my mom had nurses that would, a nurse each day that would be with her. And she would have that nurse push her to the end of the block every single day.
Wow.
Always there to welcome me home. Now, in part, gosh, I mean, she needed stuff to do. I'm sure she was just bored. But in part, I was an only child. I am an only child. Gosh, I was the most important thing in the world to her. And when I'd come around that turn, every single time, she had this big, crazy, toothy smile, and her eyes lit up. And I mean, from that one interaction that happened many, many, many times, I was inspired that sometimes, like, you can love on people without hardly moving a muscle and definitively without saying a word. And if it's rooted in genuine things, it can be a whole lot more powerful than a lot more complicated ways of articulating that love. And two, gosh, it just feels good to feel welcomed. And so I could probably just keep on dancing through other little micro moments, but
that's a big one. I don't know if I'd call that micro, because that's why I love backstories, because I think backstories illuminate this hopeful element of anybody out there that may be listening, that they're living in their adversity now and maybe feel a little trapped by it or stuck by it and wondering what's ahead. What is there any hopeful nature if they've got illness in the family, or they're caretaking someone that is just making life way harder than it can be sometimes. And that's why I love going back, because I do think I've walked back into so many thousands of people's stories at this point to look at elements and touch points that maybe you could draw a through line. It's like, mom smile. Whew. And then you fast forward. And so,
but then the adversity thing, I think is just, I believe in it so strongly. My dad and I are so close because of my mom's condition. There's no way my dad and I would be as close as we are now had we not had to band together and like team up to keep our family going. I mean, my dad and I, to this day, we talk basically every single day. Every year, as we were going from number 50 to number 1, the moment those awards ended, I would run outside and call my dad, like right away, before the parties and all that stuff. He is the person, sometimes you say, like, the people that you're the closest with are the people you can, like, call when you're having a hard time. I think the people you're actually closest to are the people you can call when you have something to celebrate, and you can, like, be fully proud of yourself and celebrating it alongside them without fear of being judged for hubris or whatever. Like, and my dad is that person. That none of that would have been the case were it not for my mom. And then taking it a step further, we did all this, built the number 1 restaurant in the world. It was awesome. I had a business partner. I thought I was going to be there forever. He and I had like a really bad breakup. I lost my restaurants. I sold them, but I lost this thing that was such a big part of my identity. And I mean, had you and I met in the months following that, I would have been like, I think that's it. Like, I think I've done my best work. Had that not happened, I would not have written the book that I wrote, and I would not be doing all the stuff I get to do now, which feels insane that there's a version of my reality where I don't get to do the stuff I do now. And honestly, I've yet to have a season of adversity that I don't look back on with gratitude. My wife, I love my wife. I think back to a relationship where I got my heart torn out of my chest. And I remember like just crying on the side of a street in New York City. And if only we had the ability to like have someone like tap us on the shoulder and be like, bro, this is the best thing that ever happened to you. Just wait. And as much as we know it's the case, it's still impossible to fully know in those moments. But I'm trying to get better at celebrating those moments and recognizing that something good is going to come.
Yeah. And we're talking about Christina. Let's give a name to her because
Yeah.
she's an amazing human. And then we're talking about unreasonable hospitality, which the book's been kind of a phenomenon. It's required reading for everybody that joins my staff.
Thank you, man.
And there's a new one coming that we're all anticipating and we're excited about. But if you haven't read that one, there is nuance to these stories that's wildly inspiring. And you're illuminating some of it. But it really brings fully into focus for me, especially hearing more from you today, even about the origin and why it mattered, and the relationships were the catalyst. They're always the catalyst.
Yeah.
But we all are prone to getting wrapped up in our vocational identity, or take vocation out of it, whatever identity where you're spending time in. It's common. It's not a bad thing necessarily to get attached to it, but sometimes we can lose reality that there's more to us than we'll ever do, how we invest our time. We've all got another gear. We've all got a second chapter. And when we get hung up and attached to certain parts, I'm there. This first thing I said when you walked in, I was like, I sometimes, I've been spending a little time the last year or two doing some things that are part of what we offer, but they're different and adjacent to what we offer with on-site. And I'm the on-site guy. That's what I'm known for.
Yeah.
That's how I know myself. That's how other people know me. I get greeted on the street as the on-site guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who am I beyond that?
Yeah.
And it's scary to kind of think about because I get a lot of validation that way. And the validation, as we said, can be a blessing and a curse. It's great feedback. I'm a words of affirmation guy. I love parts of it. I think it fills me up. And the other part is if I forget that is not who I am at my core, it's just a part of me. It's an interesting part of me that I love, but there's other parts of me too that I'm kind of trying on like I would a new pair of shoes. That if you've got validation without relationship, then ultimately you're going to be chasing your worth.
Yeah.
But if you can hyper focus on the relational side, then you can see validation for what it is, which is just helpful, encouraging, and affirming feedback. And that's why I encourage all of us. Like the first thing I think about and go back in your story is like, my son's 8. I want to take him to dinner.
Yeah.
I really do think he looks at me like his hero sometimes.
Yeah.
He hasn't used those words yet, but I think he really looks up to me and what I do and how I show up for him. And I hope I continue to be an example for him like that. But I don't know that I've given him that time to sit one-on-one and take him to a restaurant.
And just like get into it, whatever
whatever it
be.
is. And it's something I want to do. And I that's what I always get when I'm with you, is that at the end of the day, we could critically think our way into a lot of foxholes that could produce potential solutions for dividing humanity and reconnecting, regrounding human beings, stuff we all care about and love through the lens that we've spent our time and energy. But it's really all about relationships.
Yeah.
And if you invest in the ones that matter the most, then you will secure the foundation that will ultimately be the scaffolding that will allow you to go pursue meaning and value and fulfillment. Because I am curious about that night, because I've worked with lots of people who've finally been dreaming about something their whole life and they get the Grammy and but A, that night, did you know you were going to win it when you got there? And B, was it what you thought it was going to be when you got it?
But no, we did not know we were going to get it when we got there. I mean, like, you literally don't know until they announce the number 2 restaurant.
But did you have a hunch?
Yeah. It was so funny. The year before, 2 years before, all the rumors were that we were getting it that year. And that time we actually slid backwards. So I stopped bringing hunches to it. I actually, I have a pretty not pessimistic. That's not the right word. I'm not sure whether I'm like protecting my own heart when I go into things like this, but I always speculate that like
Prepare for disappointment.
yeah, a little bit. I mean, once they announced number 3 and we hadn't been called, I started to feel like maybe this is about to happen.
Mm.
And when they announced number 2 and it wasn't us, yeah, it was like one of the best feelings in the world. Because, listen, what I came to realize is that the pursuit of the goal, what it really did was unlock a philosophy that I think is so much bigger than any award, and gave everyone on the team, including myself, like a much more heightened sense of joy and satisfaction and pride in our work than we ever would have had. But I'm not ashamed to admit that, like, when you work that hard to achieve something for that many years and you achieve it, gosh, you better give yourself the grace to celebrate and to feel that sense of pride. In the same way that, like, when life serves you up a dose of disappointment, I say adversity is a terrible thing to waste. I do believe that. I also don't believe that the moment something bad happens, you should immediately jump into cheerleader mode. Like, I think you need to give yourself the grace to fully feel the weight of the disappointment. I think both things are true. And my wife was there, Christina, and there's a picture that one of the photographers of the event took of me just grabbing her and planting one on her lips, and it was an awesome feeling. And there's talk of like the fall, right? The emotional fall afterwards. That didn't end up happening for us only because we just kept moving. So I bought that restaurant from Danny Meyer, and it was never like fully, the facility itself was never fully mine. Like, we never had enough money to actually do like a full renovation. The bones were amazing, but like it needed some love. And perhaps in like self-preservation, feeling like there was going to be a fall from having worked so hard to accomplish something, and now you've checked it off the box, and then what? I said, okay, that chapter's over. Now let's make this restaurant ours. And so now we're the number 1 restaurant in the world. Capital was not hard to come by. We raised some money, closed the restaurant for 3 months, tore it down to the studs, rebuilt our dream restaurant, and kind of started over.
And so it was motivation and fuel. You kept going, but then the emotional turn happened when the unexpected is like, I've just done all this, and now what?
And now there's a lot. Now everything just fell apart.
And what were the steps that helped piece it back together?
Well, okay, so my first instinct was I am a restaurant guy. Will is the 11 Madison Park guy. Will is the guy that has great restaurants in New York City. So I started frantically, aggressively raising money, putting together a team, getting ready to open more restaurants. And then, again, adversity is a terrible thing to waste. COVID hit a week before I was meant to sign 3 restaurant leases in New York City. We went from our apartment in the city up to our farm in the Hudson Valley for what we thought was going to be a few weeks. That turned into a few months. Eventually, I let those things go. And gosh, like, I think a lot of people, COVID was expensive. I lost some good friends. Like, COVID was terrible. But I think we can all credit that season as doing something good for us, right? Most people I know can, whether it was like reminding them about like, hey, family dinner is important. Maybe we should try to have that more often, or other things like that. For me, it gave me the gift to decide what I wanted to do next as opposed to running back and doing the thing that I'd always done. When I wrote the book, initially it was, I don't know, sometimes when you re-walk the road you've just been down, it can help you decide what road you want to walk down next.
Say that again.
Sometimes when you re-walk the road you've just been down, it can help you decide what road you want to walk down next. And so I wrote the book kind of for me. Also, one of my dad's things is sometimes the best way to learn is to teach. And fresh off my experience running a company with, I was really proud of what we'd built. I wanted to put language to, put intention to intuition. How can I articulate all of my non-negotiables? And in doing so, I will be better at, upholding them in the future. And then the book just kind of became a thing of its own. And I always hoped that I knew people in my industry would connect with it. I hoped people outside would as well, but it became much bigger than I ever imagined. And there's people in prison systems and school systems and hospital networks and NFL teams and all of whom recognize that, or believe as I do, that we can be in the hospitality industry. We just need to care a little bit more, try a little bit harder. And it's been a really, really cool season in my life.
We were just catching up, and you were talking about renovation and Nashville and homes, and it led us to margin, our hunger for a little bit more margin. I think I was sharing with you that Ashley, who directs my office, we were having that same conversation this morning because I'd given her the prompt of, I really need a handful of days with nothing on my schedule to follow up 5 minutes later and said, hey, could you add this meeting, this meeting, and this meeting?
Yeah.
It's so hard to do. But I think I'm learning it's kind of like, I don't know if you can relate to this, but it's kind of like vacation. When you go, or at least when I go, it takes me at least 4 to 5 days. Sometimes
to fully detach and settle in, yeah.
And when I plan shorter ones, it's almost like on the 5th or 6th day when we're coming home, I'm finally arrived.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's that way with time off.
For sure.
I just came back from an international run. I had an opportunity to go speak up at Oxford, which was beautiful. I'm sure you've spent time. You spent time in that town?
Yeah, a little bit.
What a beautiful city. It's
incredible.
Probably one of the coolest cities I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's my first time there. But then I came home, and we intentionally built a couple days to try to recover from the jet lag. And I had kind of, anytime I see 2 days of empty schedule, I'm like, bingo. It's kind of what we crave.
Yeah.
But it takes me about 2 days to even come off the high of
For sure.
the adrenaline it takes to work. And usually during that gap, I'm off, but I'm not off because my brain's still rolling.
Well, but and honestly, what I'm trying to be more intentional in pursuit of is not even needing to turn my brain off, but giving it space to roam. Because over the last 3 years, I've I'm a teacher, I guess, right? My role is to go and teach people across disciplines about my work and my belief systems, in hopes to inspire them to follow suit, even the tiniest bit. But when you spend so much time moving and teaching, you find yourself with less margin to learn. Or when you're the person that's meant to be inspiring other people, it becomes harder to find the time to be inspired yourself. And yeah, I feel like my capital accounts are just going down in that way.
Yeah,
and I need to find time to invest in that stuff so that I can keep on pouring into others.
Well, and it's interesting because it was easier for me to deploy those tools. It's easy to talk about the tools because I'll help with a lot of the other activity that I do, put tools in place, and sometimes they're effective and sometimes they're not. But it's really when you start to come up against them with a very busy life. Anybody can do busy, but when you get busy with really creative and meaningful endeavors that continue to open up for you, it's really difficult because as you're evaluating things, it's like that one matters, that one matters, that one matters. Yeah. This one really matters.
Yes.
And it's like, what in the heck do you say no to?
Yeah. By the way, with work and with life,
yeah,
I've found myself, since we moved to Nashville, you meet new people and there's cool invitations to go do cool stuff. And same with through work, cool invitations to go do cool stuff. And then every once in a while you wake up and you look at your calendar and it just feels like you're sprinting for months and months and months without time to just catch your breath and invest in yourself, invest in my relationship with my kids, with my wife. But I think we're turning a corner there, embracing the fact that no is not a bad word.
I think people are getting it. And I think more people are talking about it, which is interesting. I'll share a quote with you from this morning, because I had a group that I host once a month, and it's for songwriters and music artists. And we've been doing it for a handful of years. They jokingly call it prehab. We circle up to keep us out of rehab. But we just talk about life and spirituality and, emotional health and faith and, how do we navigate this creative landscape that's full of rejection. I mean, they basically sign up for rejection every day. They're going to get told 100 times to the one time they are told yes when they're pitching songs and what songs are going to work. But in this particular circle, there's more number ones than could fill this room up. There's billions and billions and billions of streams. And so they've arguably done everything that they might have dreamed that they were doing, but all of them are still exhausted by the chase. Yeah. And still, even at that level, the word relevance continued to come up because they're not the shiny new as they used to be. And it was conversations you and I have had before. One of the guys about halfway through our circle shared this, and it was kind of a cool little reframe. I'll share it with you since we're just organically talking about it. What a privilege to be tired from the work you once begged the universe for. What a privilege to feel overwhelmed by growth you used to dream about. What a privilege to be challenged by a life you created on purpose. And what a privilege to outgrow things you used to settle for.
Golly.
Isn't that fun to think about it in that way?
That is beautiful.
And suddenly it's like, man, maybe the more grateful we are for it, the more space we will find between us and the solution we long for. And that's my, it's always been my hope is how do we, because I'm in that season right now I'm usually in the season for other people of identifying patterns and figuring out creative ways to disrupt them for good. But when the pattern feels locked in you, it gets a little complex and perplexing. Yeah. And this morning was one of those. It was like I was here to facilitate, but I wasn't. It was like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, quarter turn.
But I mean, like, it's interesting. And where this conversation is just going is something I was literally on the phone with someone about on my drive over here. Okay, on one hand, sometimes when I'm leaving an event and someone like runs after me as I'm like getting into a car to leave with one of my books, and they're like, "I'm so sorry to bother you. Can you sign my book?" And this has not changed in me one bit, where every time I'm like, please do not apologize. Like if I ever stop taking for granted that I wrote a book and you bought a copy of it and now you want me to sign it, then gosh, what was this all for? Like, what an honor that you're asking me to do it and that I get to do it. To your point before, like maybe it is inconvenient or tiring you out, but to be tired for having done the thing that you once dreamt of doing is a beautiful blessing. But then at the same time, to not allow those things to be where you're deriving too much of your self-worth. And the reason this was the conversation that I was having is we just did the Welcome Conference not too long ago, and I won't mention his name because it would be disrespectful, but there was a guy there who's been in the restaurant business a long time and was once like one of the guys, you know? And he's not anymore. And you can tell when you're engaging with him that like he desperately still wants to be. And it's sad because this was one of my heroes for a long time. And I was talking about that with a good friend of mine. I said, listen, I recognize that a lot of people might care who I am now. And I also know very, very well that there will be a day that no one does. And I want to be committed to now just fully embracing that day when it happens and not chasing something that's not there anymore. And okay, that's all well and good to say that, but I do think you need to prepare yourself to do it elegantly or authentically. And when I feel short on margin, the thing I feel like I'm not investing enough time into doing is to either reinforce the friendships that matter to me regardless of what I do or what they do, to invest time making sure that I am so much more than just the thing I do for a living, so that one day when the professional part of me is no longer there, there's still a very full version of me remaining. And I see too many people get to the end of their careers not having taken the time to do that. And I know for me, it's going to take a ton of intention not to end up in the very same place.
Yeah, amen. I think it's just this constant set of resets and reframes that we just throughout our life, and repairs when it comes to relationships. It's just, how do we reset our reality in real time when we get out in front of ourselves a little bit, or when ego gets to lead in the pack and we start to wrap our worth around our profession and forget to humanize the person behind the craft or the art. And it kind of just happened for me. And I think I was mentioning I just spoken up at Oxford, and the allure of a orator to go speak at Oxford is kind of like, oh yeah, it's kind of Cambridge but cooler, it's just, but I was speaking along.
That should be their tagline, by the way. Oxford, Cambridge, but cooler. But
I was also speaking along some of the pioneers in our space, and so this was Europe's largest mental health and wellness conference. And so when I looked at the roster, I went from excited to like, uh-oh. Like literally my time slot was like adjacent to Esther Perel, Gabor Mate, Bessel van der Kolk. I don't know if you know these names, but these names are a big deal in our space. I know a couple of them. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, first of all, I wouldn't even come see me, go see Esther. I love her. But I went into it with that kind of scarcity mindset. And then as you're walking through Cambridge, everything is like a museum. It's gorgeous. And I love that architecture. And then you get to the theater, and the theater's gorgeous, but you quickly realize it's a 200-seater. And my colleagues are in 2,000 or 3,000 seaters. And so immediately you're like, I'm just not quite as relevant as I used to be. And without context, because the context is I made that decision. I made that decision in 2019. It was right around when I spoke at, I can't remember when I spoke at Welcome. It may have been after that. But I decided to step back from my space and speak in other spaces. And so naturally 5 years go by where I hadn't been on any of the tickets in mental health and wellness. Why wouldn't I be surprised that it's a smaller venue, especially when I'm up against some of the pioneers, but I didn't immediately arrive there. I first arrived there. I was like, oh my gosh, is there anybody going to be here? And did I waste my time, my resources, my team coming over? And the first 10 people walk in the room, and I thought, well, that's the cap. Got 10. It literally took me back to when, in the early days, when you think you have something to say and you're kind of begging for a place to say it. Yeah. And then you were thankful for the Holiday Inn in Tucson, Arizona with 10 of your friends that gave you a sympathy seat. And then you forget that when you've spoken to an arena full of people. But here I am in front of these 200 people, or in front of the 10 people that thankfully 10 minutes later when the talk started, 200 came in, and so it filled up.
Got it.
But after about 3 minutes into it, I thought, what is it that these people are really hungry for? And I don't know that it was the content that I spent all that time prepping, that was clever and smart and academic and intellectual. I thought, and I'm used to European, it's not European, that's not favorite, British culture, because we work with a lot of Brits. I love the British culture. I love my friends from England, but that it's a cultural difference. And often for a guy like me who comes and brings warmth and vulnerability, that's not necessarily the crowd that is attracted to that right away. So you kind of have to start and get creative and come in a different door, blah, blah, blah. They were starving for it right out of the gate. People wanted to be connected. They want to be seen. And I thought the biggest gift I can give them is the gift that I think I've been given to be able to give others, which is a rested, grounded presence.
A rested, grounded presence.
And how do I get back into gratitude for who's in front of me instead of worrying about who's down the street, and show up and give them what I think they long for, which is just to feel seen, heard, and valued. And what I say is just a bonus. And so immediately I did that kind of reset I'm talking about. I took a step back and I evaluated where I was. I stepped back up and reconnected to who I am created to be. And then I just reset that reality. And I had the time of my life. It was one of the best talks I'd ever done. And there's a tiny bit of competitiveness in me. It's more than that, so I can't help but say it, even though it's not about that. But it was kind of nice that after the event was over, you look back and like, how'd we do? You know, they evaluate you in real time with this app. And Esther and I were the top 2 talks of the whole event. But the reminder and the takeaway for me was, I think when you start out, and especially if you're pursuing something that to distribute it requires a platform, which requires a public, requires a public profession, which requires eyes on you. You start out, trying to shine a light on people that you hope will hear your message. And then if you get some traction, and in your case, become a New York Times bestseller and speaking wherever you want to all over, then everybody's got a light on you. And sometimes that light can feel invading and threatening until you remember, I'm the one that holds a flashlight. It's kind of what you had in the car moment when you're like, wait a minute, you're not insulting me on my time, even though I am getting ready to go. And there's part of me that's, I don't want, it's like, oh gosh, I've got the light.
Yeah. I asked for this, and not in the way that some people can use those words. Like, you asked for this. Like, no, I worked hard for this. Like, this was the person I wanted to be in the world. And so, yeah, I hope that I never allow myself to get to the place where I take it for granted. But the other thing you said when you talked about being competitive, I feel like somehow that spirit gets almost demonized a little bit.
Yeah, I was a little meek and apologetic for it.
Yeah. And I don't think it should be. Like the reality is that every time I have an opportunity to do something, I want to work as hard as I possibly can to do the best job in that moment.
And doing so leaves you what?
Doing so leaves me feeling like I answered the call to serve. And when you give all of yourself to try to perform at a really high level, you want to know that you did a good job, right? And how you measure up to other people is invariably a part of how you know whether you did or didn't. And I don't know, I think competitiveness, so long as it doesn't bring out the worst in you, is a beautiful thing that can call you to greatness.
Let's see, that's a perfect example of the reframe I was talking about. That's a reframe I needed because what inevitably came up this morning, and I was trying to shed some wisdom on it because I'm a little older than these guys, is with validation and competitiveness comes comparison. And we went down the negative side of comparison and how to avoid it, when in truth it's just a natural part of competitive and wanting to be fulfilled at doing things at the highest level. If I were an NFL coach, comparison would be part of the gig. I got to watch tapes on the next film and understand this team, figure out what they do that we don't do. There's a positive side of that and how we move about the world. But if we're not careful, you're right, everything can kind of get demonized and looked at through a bit of a victim lens.
And by the way, so let's say the scores came back and you were the second worst. Now, competitiveness is a good thing when you look at that and you're like, oh man, that doesn't feel great. Like, what can I learn from this, and how can I actually do a better job? Because I'm there because I want to connect with the people I'm speaking to. So how can I just be better at doing that? The negative side of it is if now you feel like a lesser version of yourself because you lost. Right? Losing doesn't make us worse. It's almost like when I talk about criticism, you criticize the behavior, not the person. The competitiveness is around a behavior. It's not about who you are. You are not lesser than for not having won that particular competition. It's just, okay, now how do I learn from this? And how do I try to win a little bit more next time?
Yeah, it's the drive and the goal of being fulfilled and finding meaning and value and how you choose to spend your vacation is the fun part.
Yeah.
It's like where are we going? And you're exactly right. It would have stung and it would have hurt, and I probably would have taken it personal for a minute. But the idea is that you can deploy self-awareness enough in real time to be able to step back and say, yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes before. I've bombed before in a talk.
Yeah.
And sometimes my bombs were my biggest opportunities to come back and crush it and kick it in the teeth next time.
Yeah, but some of the best people I know are also the most competitive. Competitiveness does not make you bad. It just means you want to do your best.
Between becoming a New York Times bestselling author, becoming a sought-after speaker, oh, by the way, becoming a producer of one of my favorite shows, The Bear. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I know that highly acclaimed and award-winning show. Probably working on more TV stuff, I would imagine, knowing you.
Well, I mean, I'm still doing The Bear, so we've just started writing season 5 now, and
okay,
it's so fun.
Great. I'm so glad that's continuing. We moved into, I think I was telling you, we're renovating, and we moved into a smaller home on the property that will ultimately be available for us to host guests and do some of the on-site work at my own place.
Yeah.
But we're living in 1,000 square feet right now with our family, which has been awesome in some ways, but we decided to go no TVs. And so I hadn't literally watched TV in like 7 months.
Golly.
It's really interesting and strange. I get little bits of news, obviously, from my devices and phones, but I hadn't. That's good. I'll get to catch up on the last couple of seasons.
I got to tell you, when we moved to Nashville, the house we bought, and we had to work on it for a while. We lived in this little Airbnb, me, my wife, our 2 kids, and our dog for, 5-6 months. None of us, we literally, we had nothing there with us except for the carry-ons that we brought from New York City. And they were some of the best months of my entire life with my family. Something about just moving into a place that is not going to be your home. You have none of your stuff around you. And I'm so happy to be in our home. And yet sometimes I wake up missing that crappy little Airbnb.
Less stuff, proximity so much closer.
Yeah.
The bedrooms are tight there at the end, and they're literally 10 feet from us in their own bedroom, but they sleep so much more solid, so much better than being in a big home way away from the property. So it was, there's a lot of benefits. And the other side is we're on top of each other and could use a little more space. So, but you have entered into this season. It feels like you've already done so much and so many interesting things. And I'm curious. We really hadn't had a chance to connect with this in real time, other than I know you're writing again.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear what you're working on now, kind of, and why.
I mean, all right. So my dad, who made me write a to-do list when I was 12, right? And then being number 50 and spending close to a decade trying to become number 1, everything about my life for a very, very long time was really, really focused. I have this goal. I'm going to invest all of myself to accomplish it. And I'm so grateful that I was as focused as I was. And I was just at Cornell where I went to school and spending time with a bunch of the students at dinner the night before I did this big talk there. And they were asking me for advice. I was like, please be focused. Give yourself the gift of focusing for a measure of time. Because if you do that, then one day you earn the right to not have to be as focused. And that's kind of the season I'm in. And the reason I said that to the young kids, because I've spent too much time with 28, 29-year-olds who spend 1 year on this, then 1 year on this, 1 year, and then they get to a certain point and they feel like they're just a little bit lost in what they want to accomplish, and they haven't watched the seasons pass at anything. And if you're trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of nothing, it's hard to go too far in your career. But I did that for a really long time, and now I'm kind of just going with the flow a little bit. I have my team. There's about 8 of us. We do the Welcome Conference. We do the Unreasonable Hospitality Summit here in Nashville. We do these training workshops. We have a little creative studio where we'll work with some Major League Sports teams or We did some stuff with LinkedIn, and they do some workshops. I do the books and the TV, but I just don't want to be so focused that I can't be open to new, fun, cool things that come my way. One of my really good friends, a guy in Nashville named Aaron Ratier, Grammy Award-winning
I love Aaron. I didn't know you guys knew each other.
Oh, yeah, Aaron's one of my guys.
That's amazing.
You know Aaron as well?
Really well. Yeah, he was part of that group.
Oh.
He comes, yeah, love him.
I think he's just also one of the most wildly talented songwriters.
You got your Turtles jersey?
I got my Turtles jersey.
We're on the same team,
Go
baby.
Turtles.
That guy's a force.
But Aaron and I started writing music together. We wrote a song. It got cut by the Lone Bellow.
Love the Lone Bellow.
And it's called That Table. It's like still connected to what I do. But in my former life, I never would have created margin to write music. My team and I, we just created this new type of playing cards. They're called dialogues. I love the conversation decks that exist. I love the deep conversation that they evoke, and yet I have a bunch of them in the drawer and I never use them because, like, when I have a bunch of friends over, it's not like, hey guys, you want to do some conversation starting?
Yeah.
Similarly, I love playing cards, cribbage with my dad, spades with some friends, and yet we never really talk about much. So we created these decks. They're called dialogues. One's called Break the Ice. One's called Deep Connection. They're playing cards, except on the jacks, queens, kings, and aces, there are questions. So you and I are playing a card game, whatever game we're playing. And when we deal, you say, jacks, like, hey, let's play kings. Anytime one of us plays a king, that person needs to answer one of the questions on it.
What's an example of a question?
On the deep connection side, it's like, what's a dream that you've quietly stopped pursuing? On the break the ice side, it's like, tell the story of your first kiss. I was playing cribbage with my dad. This guy who I'm so close with for this many years, 2 weeks ago, I learned the story of his first kiss for the first time in my life.
Oh.
But
even the dream question is quite clever because it's such a common question to say, what dream do you wish you would have chased or something? But you said quietly stop pursuing, which means it's basically the invitation to say, share something you hadn't shared with somebody before.
Yeah. And that's not, in creating a card game, it would never have been on my bingo card for 2025, save the fact that I have a team around me. And
you've got a little creative lab where you're just...
Yeah, and we're like, hey, for me, there's 3 buckets. Does it sound fun? And that's about the people you get to do it with and the process itself. Do I think we can, like, learn something if we do it? And can we make a little money along the way? And the reason the last one's in there is because if it's not, then I should probably just be hanging with my family or friends. Right? I don't need to work. I used to think, like, I just want to do stuff because it's fun. But if I'm going to do something outside of, like, really connecting closely with the people in my life that I care about, I feel almost a responsibility to also make some money doing that. And if it checks all 3 of those boxes, then we do it.
And you said the fun part, because if it's not more fun than the fun that I'm having at home, I'm assuming that's what you meant.
Kind of.
Home's fun?
Well, no, I can't compare the fun at work to the fun at home. I'm saying if I'm not making money doing it, then I should just have fun at home. You know what I mean? I have plenty of creative projects that I have fun with. And I have so much fun working that I'll just work for free just because it's fun.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that I need to be more disciplined about, like, finding all the fun moments that happen with family and friends and not seeking them out too consistently through my work.
Because even when it's free, it's time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, Ashley, we've talked about that one, haven't we? I'm the same way. I give away a lot of time because I like it. It's kind of fun, but I think sometimes it invades on the time in which I need to be earning. And the reason I brought up the fun part is I've been in seasons where home had elements of fun and engagement connected, and then I've been in seasons where home was stressful and tiring and exhausting. And I really try to pay attention to the temperature and what can I curate, course correct, make a change to make sure home feels as attractive as work does.
Yeah.
Not always going to, because kids go through different stages, and sometimes you're sleep deprived and all. Forget about it. Goes out the window. But when over the years, as I've led teams, when people start to tell me they're navigating burnout, their clients at burnout, I never ask the question, what's missing at work? It's like, what's missing at home?
Yeah.
Because usually if something's missing and off at home, then we're prone to want to go spend our time somewhere else.
Yeah. And if something's missing at work, like, you can just change it. If something's missing at home, you actually just need to find it.
You have to engage with it and find it.
Like, you're not just changing it. You just have to find it because it's there. You just need to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more intentional in pursuing it.
I would like to take a couple minutes, and what's inspiring you today? What are you spending your time writing about and sharing about? And
one of the things my dad would say to me often when I was a kid is, keep your eyes peeled. He had a Boston accent. He was like, well, keep your eyes peeled. He doesn't have the accent as much anymore. And what that means is if your eyes are open wide enough, gosh, there's inspiration everywhere. And you just need to be looking closely enough to see it, and then mindful enough to grab onto it when you do. Unreasonable Hospitality was about my journey and the lessons that I learned along the way. And I've been so fascinated by walking through life and seeing how many other people and organizations and places have so much inspiration to give. And I've kind of taken on this role of someone who's meant to grab it, re-articulate it, and then share it. And so I do a newsletter called Pre-Meal, which comes out every 2 weeks. And it's one of my favorite things I get to do, which is to just see these things and then boil it down into a little lesson and then share it out. And that's kind of becoming what's inspiring the next books I'm writing. The book that's coming out in April is The Field Guide to Unreasonable Hospitality. If unreasonable hospitality is the why, this is the how. And it's like a kind of a workbook thing, but I made it much harder on myself. I worked with an amazing designer, this guy Don Clark. His firm is Invisible Creature. You should totally check them out. They do work for NASA and Pixar, and so it's this full color, beautifully interactive guide. But then I'm working on another book after that, which is really like just sharing a lot of the people and places and groups that have inspired me and the lessons I've learned and how I believe they can be manifested into other people's lives. And I mean, gosh, I've been inspired by a UPS store, and I was inspired by Clear. You know Clear at the airport?
Yeah.
I'm writing this newsletter right now. Actually, on my way over here, I was trying to find the words, but when you go through Clear, I fly a lot now. They say, welcome back. Every time you go through that line, they say, welcome back. Now, I'm in an airport for the first time. The person saying welcome back to me has literally never seen me before in their life. But someone did simple enough logical reasoning to assume that most people going through that line are going through it a second time. And I just think words matter, and welcome back. It just feels, it's wild to feel like a regular when you're going through security at an airport. And that is a beautiful feeling. And like, I think if we're all a bit more intentional in finding ways to welcome people back, or find, I don't know, all the other ways where actions and words can make a difference. When I talk about unreasonable hospitality, or the definition being creative and intentional in pursuit of relationships, I really do mean that. I think unreasonable hospitality happens at that intersection between intention and creativity. You do not grow closer to another person absent the decision to grow closer to that person. And yet, simple intention is often not enough. You need to bring creativity to the pursuit. And if more people did that more consistently with the relationships they care about, I'm not just talking about in work, but I'm talking about in life as well, it's just a better world to live in. The next time someone has something to celebrate, how are you going to help them celebrate? The next time someone who's close to you loses someone in their life, like, what is your next move? And if we bring all of ourselves towards showing up in the best possible way in those moments, the same amount of ourselves that we do to try to get the next promotion or buy a fancier house or car or whatever, I think all that stuff invariably will also follow. But I'm on like a soapboxy thing right now. What I've learned is if my eyes are open wide enough, there's so much of this stuff happening all around us, and I'm having a lot of fun seizing on it and sharing it.
Well, it's the soapbox you were describing that you were on is one I think we're all invited to be a part of. It's like, how do we care more deeply for ourselves and other people? How do we see the moments and opportunities to be able to lift people up when they're down and cheer for people when they're up, and just re-embrace our shared humanity, regardless of how we may differ. And I feel like it's coming, and I'm thankful that it's unusual to have a restaurateur turn into an ambassador for these kind of things in a way, and maybe it's not, but it's just cool. It's cool as your buddy to see the way you're using your gifts and your leadership in this season, and more importantly, I think the way you're living into the legacy that you're likely to leave behind. Because I think about, if I were to circle back to this conversation as you say 2 and 4, that's where you are now.
Yeah.
As one of your kids, I would think how honoring and how cool it would be to learn some of these things about my grandparents through your lens. Not that you're not going to share those in the home. I'm sure you've got all kinds of creative ways, but just to hear them talked about in the third person in such an honorable way, and how that was so pivotal to their story, and how you're going to be so pivotal to their story. It's just, that is what makes life to me sacred, worth living, connected, fun, engaging, and you always are that presence for the people you sit in front of. And so I appreciate you honoring us today. I can't wait to dig into your newsletter. Can't wait to get the field guide.
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear about the new book. We want to have you back. Since we got proximity, you'll be wildly booked once you get, I'm sure, on another book tour if you're doing one. But we're in your backyard, so we're going to try to get on your calendar again in the spring, because I'd love to dive into that field guide, because one of my favorite things to do is what your favorite thing is, how do you take a story and a concept, or how do you take a concept, make it a story, and then make it practical so that you can actually utilize it. And that I'm excited about. I'm excited about it for our company too, because we've gotten a lot of inspiration and motivation from what you've already written in the story. But man, you give us that little field guide, we'll go to work on it.
Dude, this was a really, really great couple of hours. I said that about the Four Seasons. They put the world on pause, and I just kind of felt the same way here. And so everyone who was on the other side of this, thanks for giving us the means to have just a conversation.
Yeah, amen. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Great having you.
Thank you.